It's November 2016. The world is still reeling from the shock of Donald Trump's presidential victory. But amidst the global anxiety, a curious sense of relief washes over a certain someone in Canada. That someone, my friends, is Justin Trudeau. Picture this. Trudeau, hair perfectly coiffed, sipping his morning maple syrup, lets out a sigh that could only be described as relieved Canadian. Why the sigh of relief? Well, imagine being the leader of a country constantly compared to its much louder, much more powerful neighbor. Imagine that neighbor electing a leader who makes bombastic pronouncements, throws diplomatic norms out the window, and seems to thrive on chaos. Now imagine that this neighbor is also your biggest trading partner. That's the reality Trudeau faced before Trump's election. Remember sunny ways? That was Trudeau's brand. Hope, optimism, a stark contrast to the divisive politics south of the border. But after a honeymoon period, the Canadian public started to feel the honeymoon was over. The economy sputtered, Trudeau's charisma seemed to lose its luster, and scandals like the SNC-Lavalin affair chipped away at his squeaky clean image. Canadians, it seemed, were getting tired of sunny ways. They wanted results. They wanted a leader who could stand up for Canadian interests in an increasingly uncertain world. And let's face it, facing off against Trump in a trade war while wearing a panda costume isn't exactly the image of strength. Enter Donald Trump, stage right, hair perfectly, well, you know. Suddenly, Trudeau's perceived weaknesses became strengths. Compared to Trump's volatile rhetoric and unpredictable policy swings, Trudeau's calm demeanor and commitment to multilateralism seemed almost heroic. Canadians, perhaps for the first time, started to appreciate their relatively boring leader. He wasn't perfect, sure, but at least he wasn't tweeting insults at the Queen or threatening to pull out of NATO or, well, you get the picture. Trump's victory had inadvertently given Trudeau a much-needed foil. He became, by default, the reasonable one, the adult in the room. The guy you'd want to have a beer with, as opposed to the guy who might throw the beer at you. Section 4, Trudeau 2.0, compassionate crusader. Trudeau, savvy politician that he is, recognized this shift in public perception and seized the opportunity. He positioned himself as the anti-Trump, the champion of progressive values that Trump seemed so eager to dismantle. Climate change? Trudeau was all in on the Paris Agreement. Refugees? Canada would welcome them with open arms. LGBTQ plus rights? Trudeau was marching in pride parades. This wasn't just about virtue signaling. It was about differentiating himself and Canada from the Trump administration. It was about appealing to Canadians' sense of national identity, their belief in a country that was open, tolerant, and compassionate. Section 5, Maple Leaf versus Stars and Stripes, a new era. The Trump presidency ushered in a new era in Canada-U.S. relations, one marked by a strange mix of cooperation and tension. On the one hand, the two countries were still inextricably linked by trade, geography, and shared interests. On the other hand, their leaders represented vastly different visions of the world. This created a delicate balancing act for Trudeau. He had to defend Canadian interests without alienating the United States. He had to stand up for Canadian values without provoking Trump's wrath. It was a tightrope walk, and the stakes were high. Section 6. When the world shakes, Canada tilts. The unexpected consequences of Trump's victory on Canadian politics serve as a potent reminder of the interconnected nature of our world. Sometimes, events on the global stage can have a ripple effect, influencing domestic politics in ways we never anticipated. In this case, Trump's win provided a lifeline to a flagging Trudeau. It gave him a chance to redefine himself, to rally Canadians around a shared set of values, and to solidify his position as a leader on the world stage. Whether this newfound political capital will translate into long-term success for Trudeau and Canada remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, the political landscape on both sides of the border has been forever altered. And sometimes even the most divisive figures can have the most unifying effects. Just ask Justin Trudeau.